So we're going to be using some of the advanced CSS formatting tools, and these are some good resources as far as how they work, but you can make your life a little bit easier using some of the free tools that are out there. So I'm going to teach you how to use the CSS Generator and the CSS Gradient tool. I'm going to click. So the CSS Gradient tool lets you pick different colors. So you can choose, and I'm going to make something sort of hideous here. You can choose different colors and different opacity, and you can choose which direction the gradient's going to go, and it will generate the code for you. And if you do both, this is just in case the linear gradient doesn't work, you can just copy this and drop it right into the body for your code. Let's take a look at my finished example. So you can see here I dropped a gradient into the back, and I've been basically using MCC purple and gold colors. So I've got it on the whole body. Now I'm using several other advanced CSS tools. I'm using columns. I'm creating cards here where I've created divs. Let's take a look at the inspect option. And cards are a really common thing that you'll see, and mine are flexible. And each piece of the card has some different tools applied to it. So if we look at the whole card, you'll see that it is a div with a class of card. And I can take that full screen. We can take a look at the style editor, and you can see what I've got here. So I'm using custom fonts. Let's use my styles.css. So again, I'm using my standard colors here. I changed my heading font to permanent marker, my text font to open sans. So I've got that linear gradient in the background here. You can see I just copied and pasted that. In my main section, I set it up with 3 columns. So it gives me a column count and column gap, and I'll show you how to get that. And then I set up the cards. So the cards have a width of 30%, a margin of 10 px and auto, a minimum height of 400 pixels, and I could change this if I wanted them to all be exactly the same. I could change that to 450, or I could just set the height. If I wanted it to be exact, I could just set the height to 450. I've got the box sizing set to border box. I've got an outline of 2 pixels with the divider color. I've got a border radius of 20 pixels, but that does not appear to be applying to the card. I think if I take that out, it's not going to do anything because it's not actually applying there. Then we've got an outline, 2px solid variable of the divided color, so it's floating to the left. It's got a padding of 3 pixels. That's between the border here and the inside of the card, so that nothing is touching up against it. It's floating to the left, so these are all floating over next to each other. It's got a margin of 5 pixels on top and bottom, and then I did a 1.5%. And you'll see that with the 30%, this actually adds up exactly the way I want it to. But you can see I can force it to wrap around. I like percentages. And when I did the math for it, if each one's at 30%, it's got a width of 30%, then I can use 1.5%, and that will have these evenly distributed. And I've got a border radius of 10 pixels. That might actually be working. I think I had that in here twice. Let's see what happens if I change that. And if I want to see if it's having any effect, and it's not. It's not actually working. Then I've got the paragraphs for the card, which I've sent to a font size of 0.8 em. You'll notice that this is much larger font size. I've got a line height 1.2. That's actually a little small. 1.3. That's pretty good. Then I've got the figure. So each one has a figure with a figure caption. The figure's got a width of 95%. So it's leaving 2.5% on either side here. It's got padding of 2%. That's on the inside of it. The margin is 2px and auto, so it's centering the figure in the card. And I'm setting a vertical alignment to top, so it's floating up to the top underneath the heading because the heading was typed first. And then I've got a box shadow here that I'm using the light primary color on. So that's how I'm doing this internal box. I actually don't think that looks that great. It would probably look better without it, but I'm trying to show off the different sort of techniques you can use. So the image is also vertical aligned to the top. It's a width of 90%, and I actually should probably take that slightly higher. And so you can play with things like that way, and it just looks better slightly higher because I took that padding off, and this is just playing with it to show you what you can do here. Then we have the card figure right here. That's your figure caption. We've got text line of center, and so I've got the text font, but I could do this using the accent color, or actually I'll just leave that the way it is, but you can pick it up any way you want that way. And I've got a font size of 1M, and it's using the heading font. Then I've got the card H2, which is the heading font, and it's got a text shadow on it. And those are the newer things I've put in here. So how do I get these things? You can go through and you can hand code these, but I kind of love the CSS3 Generator. And so you can use it for your border radius. You can use it for a box shadow. And so you can put in the numbers here, and it shows you on the actual text in here. You can see what it's doing, and then you can pick your color. And I like the hex because then if I click in here, I can just grab and you can see exactly what it's doing. You can use the font face, but I generally just prefer to use the Google fonts. This is where I got the multiple columns. So you can put in whatever it's going to look like here. See if you want 4 or 5, and you can set the column width narrower. So that's a great tool. And again, you can copy it here. Now you don't have to copy the whole thing here. These are pretty well adapted now. You can just grab those bottom two. So you can do outlines, which are sort of like borders. You can do flexbox, and we're going to be playing with this one next. But the flexbox is a really useful tool. Don't bother with it on this assignment. It's going to have its own assignment. So that's how to use the CSS3 generator. And you need to, for your project, don't mimic mine exactly. I'm just showing you that I like the card technique for showing things off, but you just need to use at least 6 advanced formatting techniques. The gradient counts as one. You can use the CSS3 generator for the others. So you're welcome to use those. If you use something other than those, please link back to it. But those are free, and you can take those pieces and modify them and use them the way that you want. And it's a really useful tool for doing more advanced CSS stuff.